We'll be giving you much more on that. But let's go back to the interview we're having with KEPSA CEO Carol Kariuki. Carol, just to give a bit of perspective, how badly were businesses affected in COVID-19 and how has KEPSA tried to help the businesses be resilient?
So it's true. Businesses were affected really bad, and businesses by sector, but also by size. And I think this was a global challenge. But because of countries more like ours, where the government is not able to give a lot of support, then we saw a lot of businesses really struggle through. But let me begin by saying I'm very proud of the Kenya private sector because they remained resilient despite all the challenges. I think we've done very well during hard times around elections, and I think business just wore the same cap and realized it was a hard time and really worked so hard to be innovative, to stay above the waters. Of course, there are those that we lost. There are people who lost jobs, but we've started seeing a stabilization around that. So what we started doing at the very beginning was set up what we called an economic framework, and that's what we engaged government and continue to engage government with today. And that looked at just how could we cushion businesses, and of course that's where you saw some of those VAT reductions, the pay and all that came from. And that was for the year. Government couldn't sustain it for too long, but then we said, what can we do as private sector? What can we do as KEPSA to help business keep surviving this? And we looked at the sectors that were especially really hard hit, especially the SMEs. And we started looking for partners. And one of the partners was MasterCard Foundation, where we partnered and continue to partner with MasterCard Foundation to really give interest-free loans to SMEs so that they can survive the pandemic, but also remain above water, be innovative. The second one is around capacity building, again with MasterCard, with UNDP and the Irish government. Again, for businesses around SMEs, businesses hard hit, women and youth. And this is training and mentorship that happens on a weekly basis every Friday. And that has really been good because it has had far-reaching effects, not only in the different parts of this country, but even in the region as far as South Sudan. And so we have about 400 to 500 businesses logging in every Friday for this. The third was access to markets. We said we are in the technology revolution. So if businesses are not operating with technology, at technology space, they're going to lose out. And while big businesses could adopt much easier, it was harder for SMEs. And so that's when we started the e-commerce booster program. And our target was 2,000 SMEs. We ended up with 2,500 for our first phase. And that has about 1,300 are already onboarded into online platforms where they're able to do business using local platforms and others international platforms. And we're also now working with ITC, International Trade Center, again on mechanisms of financing and training for SMEs. So that's what we started doing around that time. But we also realized that COVID as a pandemic was having such impact, not only to workers, but just the people themselves. And so one of the programs we started with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is around gender-based violence, to really support people around that. We started Men in Silence. A lot of times men don't speak. So we are working with our health sector board. We started that as a counseling service. Then working with, and people became very innovative. We know of the young lady who started the innovation around Wheels of Life, and we took that innovation and brought in partners like Bolt and others, so that mothers, pregnant women, and women who need maternal care during curfew hours can access health facilities. And then also telehealth, working with our Kenya Health Federation, which is our health sector. And this is where people are able to call in for medical help without having to go to hospitals. Again, that is to reduce crowding in hospitals. And we have about 40 doctors and health workers who are on the other side of the line. We have a toll-free number for KEPSA, 1196, and so many have been able to use this and access medical care. But also using the toll-free number, businesses can be helped, struggling, where do I get finances, where do I get mentoring, how do I deal with certain just different things. And so we've gotten over 31,000 calls in the last 1 year using that number. So those are some of the things we started doing. You remember our Flowers of Hope initiative again, saying how do we keep farmers in the farms, in the flower farms, working? Where do we keep the workers? About 6,000 workers who are about to lose their jobs, not because there was no demand in Europe and there were no freight. And so getting those flowers and distributing them to our health workers here, and also even saying, can we lend a hand to health workers in our big markets like the UK? And that kept the workers going until the markets were open and the freight was open. So that's some of the things we started doing that time, and we're continuing to do them now.
That's quite an impressive and quite a full portfolio of what you're doing to assist businesses to recover or to stay resilient. But now let's jump ship into something perhaps more personal to KEPSA, and it's about this 2021 strategic plan and its efforts towards economic recovery. Could you unpack this for us and tell us how you're going to actually do it?
So we do have what we call our Simba era strategy. That's about a 15-year strategy. And out of that, we divide it in 5 years chunks, which is the National Business Agenda, which run around the clock of every government administration, because government is our largest stakeholder in the sense of engagement because of policies, regulations, and all that. So we try to run it around that. Then every year, out of the National Business Agenda, we pick out a few pillars that we want to focus, depending on where there's most need. And of course, now with COVID, we said what we are focused on is recovering, but moving ahead strongly and together. We want to move together. We don't want to leave any sector behind. We don't want to leave anyone behind, whether young or old or big or small sector. And so we picked 5 pillars out of our National Business Agenda. And then pillar 1 is public-private dialogue, which is really a continuation of our work looking at the competitive index, the ease of doing business index. And those are to say how do we remain competitive as the world changes, as every country is trying to be competitive to regain its market share or to gain new market. Ease of doing business, we've been doing very well on the ranking, as a country, and we had a target of 2020 to get top 50 among the 189 countries, and we got to 56, which was very, very commendable, seeing that we were going through COVID. But there's a lot to do, and we said we have to get to top, we can't remain above top 50, and so we're working on that and looking at where are we failing in some of those indicators. And then looking at the value chains, where do we need to increase our value chains in agriculture? Where do we need to look at new markets in tourism? Did you know, 2 things that we don't even market that much as a country that amaze me. We're the only country that has 2 migrations at the same time. The wild-beast migration in the Mara and the whale migration at the coast. They happen at the same time. Then did you know we're the only country with a desert that has a lake, a freshwater lake, Lake Turkana? Those are attractive areas that we could really market. And what a time as this, when we are recovering from COVID, to start looking at those opportunities. That's one. And part of that, what we also were able to achieve this year in our finance bill is the SME credit guarantee. We'd really been pushing that through the roundtable with the president, through the ministries, and that was captured in the finance bill. We're also looking at the tax policy, and what we've done as KEPSA is commission a consultant who can start putting the thoughts, the ideals, the desires of the private sector in the tax policy, so that we can engage Treasury and Parliament as that discussion goes on. So those are some of the things that we are doing around that, and many more. Then there's a second pillar, which is the social pillar. And in the social pillar is where we are looking at the youth and entrepreneurship jobs. That's where we run our JIRA program. This is the online jobs with the Ministry of ICT and again with MasterCard Foundation. And this is creating jobs, online jobs for our young people, because life has changed. Work is not going to be what work has been. Brick and mortar will be little. A lot will be online. But how do we give skills to our young people so they can access jobs online? And 800 so far have been able to access online as we've worked to digitize judiciary. So it's good for us to digitize judiciary because it's good for investors, because investors will go where commercial disputes are able to be dealt with speed and efficiency without lost documents and files, and so we've been working with about over 800 courts in the country on transcriptions and seven tribunals. And so 800 young people have been able to access jobs. We have had BPOs who now have been able to create jobs as we work on this. We're working with the constituency, Ajira hubs, to get them renovated, to have them connected to internet, so that young people who cannot access internet at home or any other way, they can go into these hubs. So those are the two sectors first, of the two pillars.
Amazing, amazing. Quite a portfolio of work still being done right there to ensure that businesses are surviving the tough economic times. We will be most definitely back with this conversation, but I want us to take you, live to Tokyo right now, where the 3,000-meter steeplechase races have just been completed, and there are live images from Tokyo. All right, so the 3,000 meters men steeplechases has just ended, and we want now to go on a commercial break. We'll be back with more BBC Money Daily. We'll be back. You're watching Business Today on KTN News. So stay with us.